to order. Please call the roll.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Who sits here? Okay, that's fine.
You have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we've got a lot to do today. I would advise that patrons, the last order of business will be a block of bills, HJR 1, SB 43, 119, 121, 126, 131, 316, 442, 443, 444, 466, 469, 535, 547, 737, 740, and 835. If you're interested in those bills, they're going to come at the end of the meeting. What I want to do first is two bills will go by for the day at the request of patrons, Senate Bill 166 and Senate Bill 399. And the first thing I want to do is pick up where we left off at the last meeting. Senator Peterson had some bills.
Yes, sir.
The first thing I'd entertain is that with respect to Senate Bill 25, we adopt a substitute that includes Senator Bell's 266 and lists him as the chief co-patron.
Yes, sir. That's fine.
Okay. Do I have a motion? Is there a second? Okay. We've got a motion and a second to adopt that substitute. Do we need a recorded vote on that? Okay, we need a recorded vote, so all in favor say aye. Okay, we've got that substitute before us now. Senator Peterson, you were at the podium as our last meeting ended. I think we heard the proponents of your bill. I would ask Senate Bill 25, if you recall, you've made some changes to the bill since then. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. And Mr. Chair, I have a substitute version which y'all just adopted, which should be distributed on everyone's desk, which basically revises so the restriction on donations only applies to public utility, which is a defined term in 56-232.
This isn't a substitute we adopted, but do I have a motion on this substitute? It's okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Is there a second? Senator Spruill.
he's holding his hand like it's weird, like something different.
It's what should have been distributed.
The
at the outset of
substitute's
the
on
meeting.
at your desk.
Okay.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to get the substitute properly before us. All in favor, say aye. Okay. The substitute's before us, and as I understand it, the substitute now is not aimed simply at one or two companies. It's aimed at all.
I have a list.
Okay.
And if I might, if Hobie could distribute the list, Mr. Chair, with your permission.
Please.
It will show exactly who is defined as a public utility.
But it's aimed at all publicly regulated monopoly utilities.
Basically, it falls into three categories, Mr. Chair: electric public utilities, natural gas public utilities, and water and sewer public utilities. And the point I want to make is it's the corporations themselves, as well as any parent corporation, if they have a holding corporation, or any subsidiary, if, for example, they own the transmission lines through a subsidiary. Does not apply to employees or agents or any political action committees that they might set up on their own volition.
Okay. Are there any questions of the patron?
Yeah.
Senator Eben.
Yes, Senator Peterson.
Yep.
When you say that no political action committees they might set up of their own volition, it's my understanding that, as an example, that Washington Gas Light Company has an employee PAC that they pay themselves,
Right.
that they pay their own administrator. So that's no problem for them, or perhaps Dominion if they chose to do that?
I would say that's correct. It would have to be separate, so they'd have to have a separate board of directors. There would have to be some legal separation for the company, but if the employees of their own volition set up a political action committee and contribute money to it, then like any other private citizens, they can make donations. This has to do with the corporation itself.
Senator Eben.
And are you familiar with the employee PACs of some of the public utilities that this bill deals with?
I'm not, because they don't donate money to me.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Are there further questions of Senator Peterson? Well, last week we heard from people that were in favor of this bill. Do any of the changes change any of the arguments of the people that were in favor of the bill? Is there anybody that feels like they've got anything new to add to what was said last week in favor of this bill? Senator Chafin, I'm sorry. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for the patron of the bill.
Yes, sir.
And it's sort of as a result of some of these new companies, PS, public service corporations that have been added. I would like to ask Senator Peterson if because there's so many listed here, and over the years you develop relationships with individuals that work at these companies, and so sometimes you're lucky enough to get a personal campaign contribution from some of these individuals, but because you don't know them that well, you don't really have their personal email. You've got their email at Dominion, or you've got your email at AEP, or you've got their email at Appalachian Natural Gas, because that's what you use to contact them at. And I would ask, Mr. Chairman, I would ask the Senator Peterson that if I reach out to them, these people that I know, individuals that I know, some I consider friends, some I consider just acquaintances, but I reach out to them and I am trying to raise money out in the rural areas, which is not all that easy to do, but I'm out there trying to do it, and I reach out to them and I ask for a campaign contribution using their email address, their corporate email address, using that email address at the Public Service Corporation. Am I not in violation, or can it not be alleged that I am violating this this particular bill? Because so many times these things come up, and you've got your golf tournament, and you're trying to pay for your, you're trying to pay for things that you've already bought and paid for to try to raise a little bit of money to campaign against some opponent, and the tournament's the next day. You need an answer. Would I not be in violation, or certainly alleged to be in violation of this bill?
Well, Senator Chapin, I would say you would not be unless you're actually soliciting or accepting a contribution from the public utility itself. Now, if you contact them and say, hey, can your CEO write me a check on the corporate checkbook, then that's going to be a problem. If you just call, look, I have one of my best friends as a lineman at Dominion. He helped me put up my 4x8 signs this fall. And so, people help out. People, as individuals, can make donations. This going to the corporation itself. That's what it's. I've tried to write the language as plainly and as targeted as possible. I've struck out any word that would say agent or affiliate or anything that might put a negative connotation on someone that works for a public utility and wants to participate in politics. They have 100% First Amendment right to do it. I don't want the utility itself making donations.
Mr. Chairman, second question.
Senator Chafin.
Yes, sir. So, Mr. Chairman, I would say that zeroing in on it, I don't know too many. I mean, maybe it wouldn't be alignment, but maybe it would be the president of the Public Service Corporation that I would be reaching out to because I know them and because I want a bigger campaign contribution. And so would I not be at risk given sometimes the temperature of the water in the political climate that we get into? Would I not be at risk of an allegation that I have violated campaign finance laws?
Ms. Senator Chapin, again, it's a one sentence. It says, no candidate, in your case, if you were running for re-election, or your political committee shall solicit or accept a contribution from any public utility. And public utility is a defined term, and it's actually the entity that owns the gas lines or owns the power plants. And unless the CEO himself personally owned the gas lines or the power plants, again, are people going to hit you on it? I mean, people hit you on all kinds of stuff, but it would not be a violation of the law per se. It would not be a violation of the law. As to whether or not it's, a PR issue, I can't say to that. But it would not violate this law.
Senator Chase, you have further questions?
Chafin.
Mr. Chairman.
Chafin, I'm sorry. You look so much alike. I apologize.
I think you're getting better and better, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman.
So
You finished?
I think that answers.
You're after McClellan.
Okay.
Okay, Senator McClellan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to be perfectly clear and make sure everybody understands what you said is not covered by this. Your friend who's a lineman, this bill would not prohibit him or any other individual employee to contribute to a candidate or political action committee,
Yes,
right?
ma'am, that's correct.
Thank you.
And by the way, I should mention that telephone and telecommunications company are also exempted, but that's in the text of the bill.
Okay, Senator Sproul, and they're exempted because they're not monopolies. Is that Senator Sproul?
Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna try to be a lawyer because lawyers love to play around with words. So every year, I would ask my friend Senator Peters to send me a donation, and I get donation from the members of the Bar Association. So to me, the Bar Association is a utility because y'all work with the public all the time. So because Senator Peterson gave me a donation for my campaign wealth for my dinner, so am I out of line now? Do I have to vote for this bill because you gave me a campaign contribution? That's my first question. And remember now, your bar association, to me, when you say a bar association, I call it the bar utility because you deal with the public.
Bar utility.
Yes, sir.
Well, I would only say, Senator Sproul, and I'll give you a donation anytime you want. But the bottom line, and I don't expect anything except your friendship.
All right.
But I will say this. When I go out and practice law, there's no exclusive. I don't have any exclusive right in my community. Neither does Senator Survell. His office is 2 blocks away. There's 2,000 attorneys in the Fairfax Bar Association, and we're hustling every day for the business. We have no built-in monopoly at all.
Okay.
So I'll just say
Senator
Mr. Chairman,
Sproul.
second question. Then this gentleman, Michael Bills, now he's not calling himself a utility, I assume he's a billionaire utilities. So all the members, including yourself, I was told, all the members, especially those in the House, that he has given $100,000 to, and all you had to do is not to support Dominion. So if you don't support Dominion, just don't do it because you want to. Now, so all of those who are taking that money, and his only thing was not to support Dominion. That's my word, support Dominion. So now, if a member of the House, particularly those in the House, and some members of the Senate who have taken that money, hundreds of thousands of dollars, some of them $100,000. So when a Dominion bill comes up, they can't vote for it. So my concern was, I feel like the bills that are being put in from the utilities company because you were saying because they are buying our vote. That's the way I feel. So if they are buying our vote, then the donation that you got from Michael Bills and all those who took the $100,000, I want to know, is he buying your vote?
Okay, well, let me just say, Senator Sproul, I've had this bill since 2015. So y'all know who I am.
Yes, sir.
I mean, no one's bought my vote. And,
Okay.
I'm just a little attorney from Fairfax City. This has been my idea since 2015. Important people got behind it, great. But that's not my concern. My concern is just getting this bill passed.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Senator McDougal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, Senator Peterson, this is focused on monopolies and exclusives, would you accept a friendly amendment for teachers' unions since we have public education and they get exclusively a monopoly in Virginia and they receive millions and billions of dollars in state funding?
Well, I'll tell you what, Senator McDougal, if we have a collective bargaining bill and that passes the floor, that may be a great argument. But till that happens, we're not there because they don't have an exclusive and we are a right-to-work state.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator McDougal.
I'd make the argument that public school education is fairly exclusive in Virginia, so that makes it somewhat exclusive. But I think you understand my point.
Senator Survell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. So my question for the patron is, now that he's carved out, I think, telecommunications companies, I believe that includes cable companies, if I'm not mistaken, and at least in all the counties I'm familiar with, the counties that are granted a franchise in those counties have an exclusive monopoly over the homes in the counties they serve. At least I'm not aware of any counties where you get the choice of 2 cable television providers. You agree with that?
Well,
they're now out.
I would agree that, first of all, you have FiOS, you have DirecTV, you have all sorts of options. I took out telecommunications because, to me, it's a competitive industry. If you want to put it back in, make the amendment. To me, it's a competitive industry.
Okay, and I have a second question for the patron.
Senator Survell.
Thank you. So in the substitute that we have before us here, you've written that no candidate, campaign committee, or political committee shall solicit or accept a contribution. And I've looked at the definition of political committee under 24.2, 945.1, and it specifically excludes a federal political action committee, an out-of-state political action committee, a campaign committee, political party committee, or an individual. Would you agree under this that a publicly regulated monopoly utility, as you've defined it, could contribute money, for example, to the DLCC, the Democratic Legislative Campaign Committee, a federal PAC, an out-of-state political committee, and that those committees could then contribute the same money back to candidates, or same candidates could solicit money from those types of entities, and those entities could perhaps even be entirely made up of, funded by money which we're not allowed to accept directly.
Okay, well, let me first of all say that this law is precluded by federal law. Federal election law is going to preclude this statute. I'd never argue that. So to the extent that they make federal donations, that's controlled by federal law. There are also caps on federal law and federal donations and what they can do. Now, if they're using that to circumvent the process, I'm not an election lawyer, but they may have a whole host of issues be a heck of a lot more serious than what this bill would. So the bottom line is, look, we got 20 volumes of code sections. There's a way to circumvent all of them if you really think hard enough.
Are there additional questions? Okay, last week we heard from people in favor of the bill. Are there other arguments in favor of the bill? Are there people that are opposed to the bill?
Mr. Chairman, Chris Nolan with McGuire Woods on behalf of Dominion Energy, and appreciate the opportunity to address the committee today. So Dominion Energy does oppose Senate Bill 25. Just to be clear, Dominion Energy operates in various states and is politically active in those states, about 11 of them. Some of those states have corporate contribution limitations, some do not. It also has a federal employee PAC that it established and is run by its employees. They contribute the funds to them. They make the decision as to how the contributions are made. But under federal law, the corporation is allowed to establish and administer that, and it's not an impermissible corporate donation.
Well, have you seen Senator Peterson's substitute?
I've seen a version. I don't know if I have the correct.
That language just speaks to a prohibition on a political committee established by such public utility. You've used the word established a couple of times.
Correct. And as Senator Surville pointed out, Mr. Chairman, federal PACs are not included in the definition of political committee. And that's one of the changes in this bill, the substitute from last week. Last week, it only applied to candidates and candidate committees. This substitute also incorporates political committees. So the prohibition goes beyond just the candidate committee. It also includes referendum committees. It includes inaugural committees. And I'm not sure, I'll defer to counsel on this, but I think it actually may capture some political party committees
I was
as
speaking
well.
up on line 12 to the prohibition of donors are political committees established by such public utility. So you used the word established a couple of times, and the way the political committees you've established for your employees would also fall under this prohibition, the way I read it.
Possibly, and I think it is definitely true if it were a state committee. On the federal aspect of it, that's the one thing that I think would require a little bit more analysis. So they're compliant in all of those states, and in those states, sometimes they ban corporate contributions, sometimes they limit them. And the rationale behind this is a concern over influence and the State Corporation Commission and the ability of the General Assembly to appoint those commissioners. And I would say to the committee that if that is the concern, there are plenty of industries that are not in this bill that are regulated by the SEC: banking, insurance, securities, retail franchising. But even beyond that, every session for 60 or 45 days, this body makes decisions on public policy that affects hundreds of thousands of individuals, thousands or tens of thousands of companies, and those decisions have major ramifications. Sometimes those decisions are worth millions of dollars. But yet this bill decides to treat certain corporations differently than others. Notwithstanding the fact that you have tax policy, scope of practice, procurement, franchise law disputes in front of you each and every session. So in sum, if you're going to make this policy choice, the policy choice should be across the board. It shouldn't single out specific types of corporations that are active politically in the state. And that's the point that we wanted to make. And then my final point, Mr. Chairman, is last week when the proponents were speaking in support of the bill, I believe it was articulated that 28 states have a similar prohibition. And I just wanted to make sure that, and it wasn't Senator Peterson who said that, it was one of the supporters. I want to make sure to be very clear that you're not confused that 28 states have a prohibition like this. 22 states ban corporate contributions outright. So in that respect, a public service corporation will be treated just like any other type of corporation. 6 states do limit the ability of certain regulated industries to make contributions to specific candidates. For instance, Public Service Corporation in one of those 6 states cannot contribute to a candidate for the Public Utility Commission because it is the Public Utility Commission that is in fact regulating that entity. This bill is much more narrow, much more focused, targeted in its prohibition. And I'm unaware of a state that does exactly what is being proposed here. So, Mr. Chairman, those are my comments, and thank you for the time.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Peake.
Yeah, I had a question for the witness. Mr. Nolan, how many states did you say Dominion does business in?
I believe that 11 is at least the number that they have political activities in.
Roughly. And in any of those 11, or how many of those 11 is Dominion barred from making political contributions, just Dominion as a public service corporation?
None that I'm aware of. In the places that they are prohibited like any other corporation.
So all corporations, Mr. Chairman.
That is my understanding.
Senator Peake.
Yeah, so in those states, it's just all corporations are prohibited.
Correct.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, I heard another voice.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Bell.
The witness, I would ask, do you see a difference in monopoly companies versus non-monopoly corporations and their ability to make rate increases and/or affect change on the consumer when there's no other choice?
Mr. Chairman, I would say I see no difference between a business operating in a monopoly setting and a business that is operating in Virginia that comes to the General Assembly and asks you to make a public policy change that affects their business. I mean, if the concern is influence, then that concern should be present across the board. And what we're saying is if you make that policy decision that, yes, we are concerned about this in such a way that we are going to limit political speech by these corporations, then you do so in a consistent way.
Mr. Chairman?
Senator Bell.
I appreciate that. As far as influence goes, how much has Dominion contributed since 1996 to General Assembly candidates?
Mr. Chairman, I would say I do not have VPAP in front of me, but I'm sure it is easily found.
Mr. Chairman, I would offer that electric public utilities, out of $16.5 million, $16.4 million, Dominion has contributed $12,883,000. I would say when you want Dominion as a monopoly to be treated like other corporations, wouldn't you agree that this is a huge amount and it dwarfs what other corporations have given?
Mr. Chairman, I would say I don't have in front of me data about other participants in the Virginia political process since 1996.
Senator Eben, then Senator Reeves, if Senator Bell's through.
Yeah, first off, I want to note that Senator Peterson's in my bill dealing with campaign finance generally is a wider bill. But also, Senator Peterson, you mentioned cable companies. I live in the city of Alexandria. I've got one choice for cable. Isn't that a monopoly? It's regulated by the city council.
Well, first of all, it's not a state-chartered monopoly, so.
So
again,
locally chartered monopolies, okay?
Senator Edmund, you want to amend my bill to add them in? Go ahead and do it. I'm being serious.
Yeah, I was just trying to get the opinion of the
Senator
patron.
Reeves and Senator McClellan after that.
Mr. Nolan. So there are a lot of companies that work for as subcontractors to Dominion. Would you agree?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, and some of those subcontractors are solar companies trying to become solar utilities. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So would it be Dominion's policy, should this bill pass, that you will prevent your contractors from giving as well?
Mr. Chairman, I cannot speak to that. I appreciate where the gentleman is coming from the question, but I just don't think I'm in a position that I can make that representation to you today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator McClellan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a couple of questions, maybe more than a couple. I'm not sure if they're for Mr. Nolan or for the chairman, for the patron. Would you agree with me that under the Constitution that set up the State Corporation Commission, that rate-making authority that was the State Corporation Commission is set up as a quasi-legislative and quasi-judicial body, correct? And when the state corporation operates as a rate-making body, it is exercising a legislative function, right?
I would say to a certain extent.
And that is a legislative function that the General Assembly delegated to the State Corporation Commission.
Except, of course, when we suspend it.
Right. And there are only certain companies that are rate regulated by the commission, correct?
Yes, ma'am, that is absolutely correct.
And cable companies are not.
Right.
Telecommunication companies are not.
Right.
Banks are not. The only companies that are rate regulated by the State Corporation Commission are the ones that are covered in your bill, right?
I defer to the gentlelady's superior knowledge on this, so I think she is correct.
And it is those rate regulated companies that are granted monopoly status, right?
Yes.
And they are granted monopoly status because in establishing the rates for those companies, the State Corporation Commission, at our request, is trying to balance the public policies of recovering costs and not pricing services so that customers can't afford them.
I think I would use the phrase stranded costs, that they are trying to help them recover stranded costs and receive a return on equity.
And the commissioners or the judges of the State Corporation Commission are not elected by the public, right?
They're appointed by the Assembly.
That's right. And if you are concerned about influence, well, let me ask it this way. Is your concern about influence a concern based on how the people setting the rates that customers will have no choice to pay because they have no other option, what kind of influence is over them?
My biggest concern, Senator McClellan, was when we suspended the jurisdiction of the SEC and then limited the jurisdiction. And we did that repeatedly, multiple times from 2015 through 2018. That was my concern. That's why I brought this bill, that the General Assembly was taking away the constitutional authority of the State Corporation Commission to set these rates.
And does the General Assembly set public policy in a way that directly affects rates that are charged by customers in any other company?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, are there other witnesses?
Mr. Chairman, Ron Jefferson with Appalachian Power Company. Appalachian Power Company operates in 2 states, Virginia, West Virginia, but also my parent company is American Electric Power. American Electric Power operates in 11 states. Of those 11 states, 7 states prohibit corporate contributions. The other 4 states put some sort of limits, or 3 of those states put some sort of limits on corporate contributions, and then we have the way we operate here in the state of Virginia. My point is that in each one of these states, all corporations are created the same. And all my company is asking is that you treat our company the same way. If you want to put limits on a corporation, if you want to ban corporate giving, then that's how we operate in other states, and we operate fine in those states. We just ask that you treat us the same way. Thank you.
So you're asking for if we're going to do limits, there ought to be corporate limits or there ought to be corporate exclusions, but monopoly shouldn't be singled out.
That's correct, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Eric Link, representing Virginia American Water, we oppose legislation.
Thank you.
Tyler Minnick from the Virginia Chamber of Commerce. We are opposed to this legislation.
Thank you.
Afternoon, Mr. Chairman. John Garrett Kemper for Virginia Natural Gas. We oppose the legislation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Trina Jones-Robleski with Columbia Gas. We are a subsidiary of NiSource. We have an employee-sponsored PAC, about 50 employees out of our 400, and we also operate in 7 states when we give in all of those states.
Well, would you say the PAC was created or established by the corporation?
Yes, we administer it, and we advise our PAC members on everything that's happening down at the General Assembly and in politics in general.
Thank you very much. I don't know if there are any additional questions.
I have one for the patron.
Okay.
So if I'm reading this right, you have 3 bills. Senate Bill 488 on contributions, indirect and otherwise. 205 with limits in general. Do 488 or 205 include corporate donations overall?
Yeah, what I would do is, and once we get to that, I'm going to lay ask for y'all to lay 205 on the table, and just 488 is just a standard cap on contributions of 20,000 per cycle. So,
okay.
Just to follow up, Mr. Chair, does 488 include no corporate contributions?
it includes all contributions.
So you're allowed to make corporate contributions?
Up to the cap.
Under a cap in 488?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Senator Peterson, if you've got a few words to wrap it up, that's.
Let me just, I just want to finish where I began, which is this is not to impose or allege anything at anybody. I was here in 2015 when we suspended the SEC's jurisdiction. I felt that was wrong. I felt the process was wrong. And I felt there was a perception, and I won't say if it's accurate or not, that I felt there was too much influence in this building. And I felt like the easiest way to do it was just to prohibit these contributions. I would say to my colleague, Senator Reeves, it's subsidiaries, not subcontractors. Somebody subcontractors with Dominion, they can make donations all day long. At the end of the day, look, it's an up or down vote. God bless y'all, and we'll see what happens.
Okay, the bill is before you.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Surville.
Thank you. Speaking to the bill, and I appreciate where the gentleman's coming from, and I appreciate how a lot of people feel about what's going on in this Commonwealth over the last 10 or 20 years in terms of policy. I would say that, first of all, I think that a lot of the concern that people have would be alleviated if we had a state corporation commission that operated as a full regulator, and I'm pretty confident that with some of the political changes that have occurred in this state over the last 4 months that you're going to see the state corporation commission better enabled to do their job, number one. Number two, I think the commissioners that have been appointed with a certain point of view, and I suspect that as we move forward, we're actually electing people to that commission who are going to take a more aggressive view of their job and also be much more friendly towards some of the clean energy goals that many of us share. And I'm excited to see what a newly empowered and constituted state corporation commission might do once they're given that authority. With regard to this contribution stuff, I lived before I was elected to the General Assembly. I was the chairman of the Fairfax County Democratic Committee, and I had to operate, both solicit and supervise both a federal PAC and a state fund at the same time, and became acutely aware of the restrictions on federal contributions. And in living under both dual systems and talking to many people who've lived under both, I'm convinced that the Virginia system, while doesn't have as many rules as other systems, it is much more transparent than systems in the rest of the country and the federal system. In Virginia, if somebody would like to participate in the political process by writing a check, they can write a check of whatever size they want. It goes into account. It's disclosed to the public. It's on a website. You can see where the money came from and where it went. In the federal system, where we have all these caps and limits and primary caps and then a general election cap and then different accounts for different purposes, The money goes in, if somebody wants to write a check for a certain amount of money, the money goes to 8 different places before it ends up at its source. If you can even figure out where it came from at the end, you need a crystal ball. And not only that, because of that, in Citizens United, we now have 501c4s and 527s. We have super PACs. We have all kinds of organizations which don't even disclose who's contributing to them. So when things come out, you don't even know where the speech is coming from or who's funding it. And from my perspective, the more we put rules like this in place, the harder it becomes for the public to figure out what's going on and who's funding it. And that's my concern about going down this road. So that's among many reasons why I can't support the bill, although I feel like it's motivated by genuine and sincere and serious concerns.
Okay, the bill's before the committee. Is there a motion? Is there a second? Motion and a second to report the bill. Are there other motions? Okay, the roll is open.
Five ayes, 10 nays.
Okay, the bill does not pass. Senator Peterson, you want 205 to be stricken?
I don't want to strike it because I thought that may have some, if you all could lay it on the table, because.
You've got 205 and 488. We don't have a lay on the table
Okay.
motion.
I guess as long as I strike it, I'm not precluding my 488. They're the same subject matter.
Okay,
488 is the
well,
one I want.
I'm interested in 488 and 889 from Senator Eben.
Okay.
I'm interested in how those two bills contrast. Do I have a motion to strike Senate Bill 205?
That's fine.
Okay, a motion and a second to strike 205. The roll is open. Okay, 488 and 889, I'd like to kind of figure out from a policy perspective, if we want to go down this route, which route we want to take.
If I might just give a quick summary.
Okay.
And I think this is pretty basic. This is basically a $20,000 cap per cycle on donations. It makes no distinction between public monopolies or it couldn't be a nonprofit, but individuals, wealthy people, poor people. It's just a $20,000 cap. The number is, frankly arbitrary. I think it's an easy one to remember. But the bottom line is, I do think that there needs to be a limit on the amount of money that comes into elections from one single source. I can give you specific examples of why that is, but I think we've kind of talked this over. You've heard all this testimony from my colleagues, from the monopoly industry, that they're limited in other states and barred in other states. And we know there's an issue with public perception. And here's a limitation bill. So there it is.
And the limitation would apply. A member of the House of Delegates could get, or a candidate for the House of Delegates could get $20,000 per election cycle, which is 2 years. The candidate for governor could get $20,000 from one source for 4 years in an election cycle. Is that correct? Is that the way?
It's per campaign cycle.
Okay.
Can I ask staff under, I think under both bills, Senator Peterson's bill, on line somewhere between 35 and 40, does that allow for corporation? 38 maybe?
Senator Eben, Mr. Chair, person is defined in 24.2, 945.1 to include corporation, so.
That was my intent.
Okay.
And your bill, Senator Eben, would limit the amount of campaign contribution per year.
Yeah,
The way I read it, so, and basically it would be up to $10,000 per statewide candidate, so $40,000 for an election cycle for governor, and up to $5,000 per member running for the House of Delegates for two year cycle.
I think what I'd like to do, Mr. Chairman, is let Senator Peterson present his.
Okay.
He's worked a lot harder on it, and then I'll probably strike. I'd like to strike mine, as long as he's going to present his. I think the committee can hear from him.
Okay, do we have a motion to strike?
Or roll. I'm sorry, roll mine in.
Okay.
Roll mine.
Do we have a motion for a substitute for 448 or 889 into 448?
488, Mr. Chair.
488, I apologize. Okay, a motion and a second that we create a substitute with Senator Eben as the chief co-patron. Okay, Senator. Yeah. Senator Peterson.
Yeah, and once again, Mr. Chair, it's $20,000 per cycle. It makes no distinction between individuals, corporations. There's some language which I believe is cut and pasted from the federal statute about control and children and things of that nature, and aggregation of family contributions. Contributions by spouses are deemed separate. Unemancipated children under 18 are considered contributions by the parents. So there's some details in here. It's a little bit of a pain, but the bottom line is you either believe in this concept or you don't. I believe in it. So that's where I am.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Spruill.
Senator Peterson. Yes, sir. I can see for a delegate, for a senator, but I'm looking at when my district is compact to Northland Chesapeake, and one donor for $20,000, I can see that. But for a governor who has the whole state, and it's kind of low, so why would you want to limit the governor, same as the delegate who represents only 80,000 plus, what have you, 80,000, 20,000 per candidate, and yet he has only 80,000 when the governor has to campaign for 8 million folks. So why would you do that to him? I could see it for us, but could you do a little bit more for the governor and lieutenant governor since they're statewide?
I would simply say there are people running for president that have a lot stricter restrictions than this. So this is more generous than they have on the federal side. I'm not wedded to 20,000, Senator Spruill. If you came back and said, really ought to be 30, I just don't want to have unlimited. I don't like the $500,000 people dumping $500,000.
Yes, sir.
That's a problem.
Mr. Chairman, I understand that, sir. I'm just saying that because the House we only represent 80,000 and the Senate 225,000 and the governor 8 million. That's what I'm saying. Could it be for the statewide candidates? Could it be a little bit more? That's my question.
Well, Mr. Chair, I defer to the will of committee. I'm a big believer in having one simple standard that you got one number, and whether I write a check to Lionel Spruill or I write a check to, Mark Warner or whomever, or whoever our statewide governor is, Northern. I mean, that you have one standard.
Senator McClellan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of questions to make sure I understand how this compares to the federal system. Am I correct that under the federal system, there's one set of limits for a primary season, but then once the primary is over, there's a new limit?
That was the bill you just struck, and I hated that because you got to have two separate accounts, one for the primary, one for the general. And everyone I've never run for Congress, I never will, but everyone I talked to says it's really a pain to have the two separate accounts, so I just combined it.
Further question, Mr. Chair.
Senator McClellan.
Also, in the federal system, once an individual has reached their maximum amount, they are still allowed to give to a party committee or something like DGA or DLCC or a state party or the DNC. Right. Would that still be allowed under your bill?
Yes, sure.
Senator Surville.
Mr. Chairman, I'm in general more open to this than I was obviously the last bill, but I want to give you a hypothetical. Suppose a state senator wants to run for governor, and suppose she has, say, $100,000 in her campaign account, and she decides to run for governor. Under this bill, it looks to me like she can't take any of the money out of her state Senate account and contribute it to a statewide account. Is that right?
That's a good question. And again, I'm not something I lose a lot of sleep over. But you may be correct that if you've got one account, I assume like when Jennifer Wexton had to do this and people had to take money in their state account and transfer it over to their federal account or
their own state account.
You can't do that.
Can't do it. Well, there you go.
That's what I did.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you could promote the heck out of yourself in your Senate district.
Mr. Chairman, further questions?
Senator Surville.
I suspect,
Lots of ads.
and there's another female senator. Is she still here? I guess she left, but she might know the answer, given that she went through this too. But, at the federal system, they have a rule against coordination, and they prohibit coordination because coordination is a sort of indirect way of spending money, which is why you see these silly videos of Mitch McConnell turning to the camera and smiling and hanging out with his wife and not doing anything, just sort of sitting out there on the internet for anybody to pick up if they so choose to use. So I don't see any anti-coordination provision in this statute. So am I correct that, for example, if somebody wanted to help one of us to the tune of $100,000, they could have a conversation with us and say, hey, I'd really like to do a mail campaign or a TV ad about this, and they could just spend the money themselves on TV, and because we don't have an anti-coordination rule, it wouldn't constitute a contribution.
I think trying to violate a criminal statute, or this is civil, whether or not it could be charged as a conspiracy, I don't know. You know what? At the end of the day, this is a step. And would there have to be laws built around it? Yeah, of course. But this is a policy statement saying, you know what? The people that put $500,000 in and buy a Commonwealth's attorney's race or a sheriff's race or what have you, we're done with it. Okay? We're done with it. You're going to raise the money in the community, or you're going to be capped at $20,000.
Senator Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I share the concerns about having only one donation amount for different races, but separate from that, I have a question. Would you be open to an amendment on the no limit contributions from an individual or their family members? Because frankly, if a wealthy person runs, they can do exactly what you just said. They dump $500,000 and buy the race. And frankly, the way this is right now, I don't think it's fair, because the person who's not wealthy is going to get a limit at $20,000, but yet if you're wealthy, you can dump whatever you can into your campaign.
Well, I'd say there's been people that have run for U.S. Senate that have handled that. People run for president, including one candidate right now who's dealing with that issue.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Bell.
I would respond. I mean, federally, you've got, as you described earlier, a million ways someone can get around that. But here, we're going to limit that candidate to $20,000, and yet the wealthy person can go and dump however much they want into the race. Would you be willing to amend this to take away those unlimited contributions from a person or their family?
I'm going to defer to my phone a friend, Senator Vogel. I think limiting someone's use of their own money, that is a First Amendment issue. And I think that's been litigated in Buckley v. Vallejo. I think so. Jennifer, am I wrong?
And counsel advises me there might be some constitutional issues with what you've suggested.
I appreciate that, but I mean, respectfully, I'll have to oppose it the way it is now, because I think, frankly, it creates another unfair situation, unfortunately. I like the concept, but I can't support something else that would be unfair.
Okay, are there additional questions for the patron? Are there people who would like to speak in favor of this bill? Are there those that have a contrary view? Okay, the bill is before you. What's your pleasure?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Are there further motions? Open the roll.
Six ayes, 9 noes.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'll see you in a little bit. Yep. Okay, the next I want to re-refer Senate Bill 6. I think it needs to go to Finance, or it's been requested by the Finance Committee, by the Chair of the Finance Committee. Okay. So do I have a motion? Got a motion and a second to re-refer Senate Bill 6 to Finance. Does that require a recorded vote? It does. Okay, roll is open. Okay, the bill has been re-referred. Then Senate Bill 760 needs to go somewhere. Education and health. Okay, Senate Bill 760 needs to go to Education and Health. Senator Howell moves. Senator Evans seconds. Do it. The roll is open. And that bill is re-referred. Next, I want, we've got a number of first resolution constitutional amendments. At the patron's request, Senator Chase, I'd like a motion to strike SJR 29. A motion and a second. All in favor, vote yes on the electronic voting machine.
Mr. Chairman, I have one you can strike.
Okay, Senator.
Senate Bill 43, it's my bill.
Okay.
Strike that, please.
Senate Bill 43?
Yes.
Okay, Senator Spruill's request, Senate Bill 43 is, I've got a motion and a second to strike that. Okay, all in favor, vote on the electronic voting machine. Okay. Okay, then SJRs 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 8, 11, 14, 16, 19, 59, and 63 are first resolution constitutional amendments which wouldn't be taken up till next year. I'd like to carry those over, and we can have a meeting in December if we need to. Okay, motion and a second. All in favor vote yes on the electronic voting machine. Then I've got the appointment resolutions 43, 44, 45, 46, 71, 73. They were before the committee last week, and are there any questions? I'd like to go ahead and get those approved and get them out on the floor if we can.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Serville.
Can we, it sounds to me like you might be inclined to take those in the block. Can we take out Senate Joint Resolution 46 so I don't have to vote for my mother?
And I've got the same problem on Senate Joint Resolution 43, I think.
Okay.
I've got a, okay.
I'll vote for Scott's mom.
44, 45, 71, and 73. We've got a motion and a second to report those resolutions. All in favor, vote yea on the electronic voting machine. Okay, with respect to Senate Joint Resolution 43, I've got to, I think, abstain on lines 22 and 23, and I'll vote for the rest, but I will abstain on those lines. Is there a motion on Senate Joint Resolution 43? Okay. All in favor, vote. We've got a motion and a second on Senate Joint Resolution 43. All in favor, vote yes on the electronic voting machine. Okay. Do I need to vote yellow, or can I vote, since I've abstained on lines 22 and 23, I can vote yes. Okay. Okay, Senator Serville's abstaining on lines 258 and 259 on Senate Joint Resolution 46. Do I have a motion on that resolution? Okay, motion and a second on Senate Joint Resolution 46. All in favor, vote yes on the electronic voting machine. Okay. Now we can move to the other bills, and Senator Edwards and Senator Edwards, which bill do you have?
Well, first of all, did you Senate Joint Resolution 7, the marriage amendment?
That's gone by for the day.
That's gone by to next
for the year.
December.
For the year.
Okay. Senate Bill 547 is requested by the City of Salem to be in a pilot program to have turn 5 precincts into 2 vote centers because only for municipal elections and for primaries for 3 years in a pilot program. That's basically what this is. The bill sets up a pilot program for super precincts and vote centers for a 3-year period, I believe it is. And it's requested because City of Salem wants to do this for a 3-year pilot program.
Has the State Board of Elections looked at the bill?
I think so.
Mr. Chairman, Jessica Bowman, Deputy Commissioner of Elections, we do not have a position at this time.
Well, how exactly would this work? Maybe staff can help, or if you, Jessica, do you know?
I'm not sure what you mean, Mr. Chairman. The bill sets out that there's going to be a pilot program. The state board will be authorized to administer these, supervise them. There's some restrictions or minimum criteria put on what types of precincts can be created, the size of them, the number of voters that could be assigned to them. I'm not sure how the state board actually goes about administering a pilot program from a very technical standpoint. I can tell you what's in the bill, though.
Well, Senator Edwards, would this add cost to the State Board of Elections or to the administration of the election itself?
No state fiscal impact, is what I'm told.
It wouldn't be a fiscal impact necessarily. We would just look at what's laid out in the policy if the General Assembly decides to go forward. I would imagine localities would apply, come before the state board, and the state board regulate it. We've seen this bill before. I think it's for localities that want like super precincts when there's low turnout. So once again, we don't have a position.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Reeves.
Senator Edwards, how would this work with all the split precincts that we have?
Well, there are 5 precincts they want to put into 2 because they have very low voter turnout when it comes to municipal elections and primaries. That's all it does.
So
But
that's just the city of Salem.
Yeah,
though.
city
This
of
bill's
Salem.
not limited to the
Oh,
city of Salem. is
That's
what
true.
Senator Reeves' point.
People would have to apply to and meet certain requirements. No more than 1,800 registered voters in a super precinct and so forth.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Edwards, I'm reading the bill, and it doesn't say anything about split precincts. I have one. My jurisdiction has 27 at a minimum. I think there's even more than that in my district. So I'm trying to envision, this isn't narrowly defined down to Salem. This is what the law, what's written here doesn't apply to what you're saying, Mr. Chairman. So my concern is, if this passes in its current form, then anybody can apply for this, and it still doesn't rectify all the split precincts we have. How do we encompass
It
those?
would require unanimous approval of the state board, too, to do it. I mean, they would set up the criteria in the bill as well as the state boards reviewing the applications. That's all.
What, Mr. Senator Edwards, where in the bill does it say that the state board has to agree unanimously?
It says here, under F, no proposal under the pilot program should be authorized without unanimous approval of the state board,
Okay.
et cetera.
Okay, Senator Eben has a question.
If I'm reading this correctly, it says that it would allow for the June primary election.
Right.
And I have some questions about that because the June primary election, it could give undue influence or lesser influence to the area of the vote centers. If, say, for example, in my area, that Alexandria City decided to have these vote centers, meaning that you had to go further or have a more challenging time getting there than your local neighborhood precinct, but then, or in part of Alexandria, you didn't have these, or the next locality over, you could have a harder time or an easier time if it remained the same. And also, I just wanted to check who would be publicizing and mailing out the postcards to people to advise them they have a new polling place?
Well, the governing body, the locality, would have to unanimously approve, let's see.
No,
make
it's
a
a majority
proposal.
of the local governing body.
Yeah, that's right. Governing body, whose proposal for participation in the pilot program, they would have to make a recommendation. I mean, they would have to vote to
Mr. Chairman.
file an
Senator
application.
Reeves. I'm sorry, Senator Evans. Still
Yeah, on line 33, it says each super precinct shall cover an area of no more than 200 square miles.
Right.
Seems kind of big. So that's one reason I'm wary. The other reason is just that it's not uniform, the pilot. If it was just for the municipal election, I could see that as more likely. So I think those two are problems for me.
Okay, Senator Reeves.
Mr. Chairman, in our political process, we have the ability, I don't know what the Democrats do, but we have the ability to do in the nomination process in a June primary to do a what we call firehouse primary or what's the word I'm looking for, Clairbo? Canvas, right? So we'll pick a couple of firehouses in one county, which is the same idea as I think what you're trying to get at, Senator Edwards, here with the super precincts because of that low turnout. So I don't know that this bill is necessary, so to speak, at least in the primary process-wise. That'd be my opinion.
Well, there are two different things. Yeah, I know what you mean. Firehouse primary is run by the party. This would be run by the election board.
Okay, there, Senator McClellan. I forgot Senator Sproul. I apologize.
No problem.
Since you might be statewide, I yield to her. Oh, bless your heart. Thank you. Senator, would it help then if we can make this just for Salem? Because it's other problems, it affects other problems, like Senator Reed was saying, it's called problem otherwise. You have problems, you have those 5 precincts. Out of those 5 precincts, you're lucky you get a good turnout in 2.
Yeah.
So would that be a big problem if you just narrow it down to just Salem?
Well, they said they would want it only for the primary in June and for the municipal, May municipal elections. But
I'm not saying that, I understand, but not for Chesapeake, not for Norfolk. I'm saying, could it be for just Salem, if you got trying to solve your problem?
Be fine with me.
But I'm saying, don't put your problems on me.
I requested the bill for Salem the bill came out written like this, as a pilot program, statewide. But it's fine with me if you want to just give Salem the chance to do that.
Are you making that motion, Senator Sproul?
Yes, I am, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, got a motion and a second to limit this to the city of Salem. Is it's the pilot project?
Yes, sir.
Pilot program.
Mr. Chairman, I do want to note that that would become special legislation, so we'll have to get kind of creative with the drafting. So this would need to be a substitute to give me enough room.
The substitute
that
to do
out.
that, that's fine. Senator, got a motion and a second, but Senator Eben has a question.
I wanted to offer one more amendment, which would just be that it would be for the May municipal election. Are you friendly to that?
Wait a minute, Mr. Chairman.
Senator
Don't
Sproul.
we have to pass this before you do that?
Just before to amend it.
Well,
But how can you miss something that haven't been approved yet?
okay. Let's amend it, if we're going to amend it to special legislation or to simply the city of Salem, we can do that first. Then we can consider amendments to that. Then Senator McClellan, Senator Boysko are both on the queue. Okay, so first, we're going to consider adoption of a substitute to limit this to the city of Salem.
That's right.
Okay, all in favor of that substitute, do we need a recorded vote on that? Okay, all in favor of that substitute, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed. Okay, we have that substitute for us. Now, Senator Eben wants to amend that substitute to make it applicable only to the municipal elections in the spring. And Salem has elections, local elections in the spring?
They did. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Boysko.
before we take that question up, I know that in my own municipality, the town of Herndon, when we have the local elections, there is one precinct only. We didn't need any special legislation to achieve that. I don't know that it's necessary for the city of Salem to pass any special piece of legislation.
How they did that. Falls Church wants it.
The municipal election, which is what I thought the amendment was on the table to amend.
The one I was going to make, yeah.
I thought we just said that this would be a pilot program
For the city of
For the
Salem.
city
And
of
his amendment
Salem.
was just for the spring municipal elections. But what you're saying is they already have
They
that
can
authority.
already do that, yeah. There's not a need for it.
Okay, Senator McClellan, did you want to address that point?
Not that point. I guess I have a separate question that may.
Well, first off, let me, do you want to withdraw that amendment until we figure out whether there's authority to do that or not?
Yeah, I can do that until staff.
And I see a member of our electoral board from Fairfax County nodding at me that I'm correct.
Okay, Senator McClellan then has something.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if I'm reading lines 33 and 34 together correctly, under this bill, you would only have one voting location serving up to a 200 square mile jurisdiction, super precinct. Is that right? Staff is shaking their heads.
Senator McClellan, I would say that's certainly the way the chair reads it, and I doubt that the city of Salem is 200 square miles in size.
It's not very big. It's about 25,000 people.
Well, and so this may take care, since we've limited it to Salem, that may take care of my problem, because I would have a problem with one voting precinct for that big a jurisdiction. How long does it take, under this, if you had one super precinct that was all of the city of Salem, how
Not very
big is
big.
Salem? Okay. How long would it take to get from one end of Salem to the other?
I doubt if it's a half an hour, it'd be, I don't know, 20 minutes.
Okay.
10 or 15
10
minutes.
minutes. Yeah, just down Main Street. It depends whether the stoplights are running.
Depends on the stoplights.
Well, then now that we have limited this just to Salem, it's addressed my concern.
Okay, and I mean, so we've limited it to just Salem, even if there's, is there authority to already for a municipality to limit the number of precincts in a spring election? There is that authority. Okay, I'm getting some, I'm getting it. Okay,
The town of Vienna right now has one precinct for municipal elections, and then for other elections has 4, I believe.
okay.
I don't know if, here's the kicker, I don't know if it's in some charter or some particular legislation. Do towns have charter?
Okay, it might, yeah, we might be talking about a town, but I
It's a
don't,
city.
you know, we're talking about a
Salem's
city. We don't need to probably worry about it. Yes, Senator Sproul.
The lady who was on the electoral board in the back had something to say different. Yes, ma'am. If you don't mind, Mr. Chairman.
No.
Yes, ma'am.
Clarabelle Wheeler, no longer on the State Board of Elections. But Ms. Hadley is right for towns, Senator Boysko is right for towns and small jurisdictions. 45,000 population, all voting in one super precinct. Are you going to have this all on one day, in one place, with, I don't know, a lot of scanners and a lot of poll books? And I think you need to look at this because you're setting, I don't need to tell you gentlemen and ladies, you're setting a precedent. I mean, you're authorizing something to go forward. A municipal election, as we all know, is very confined. If you turn this into the Salem primary election, then you potentially have 2 parties, multiple candidates, multiple types of ballots. It could get very confusing. Maybe you need to have this clarified a little bit before you put it into law. Just be.
Mr. Chairman?
Senator Sproul.
Then the question that, now that we know that we have limited bill just from Salem, so can we make it so we can have more than just one precinct for 200,000, I don't care for 25,000 people, for 200,000 miles? I know y'all are different in Salem than city folks, but that's a lot of travel. So we got Salem, we've done that, but can you have more than one precinct?
Well, they want to have 2 precincts, have 5 of their precincts down to 2. And I don't know how many precincts they have altogether, but they have 5 identified precincts they want to put into 2.
Mr. Chair.
Senator McClellan.
If we are amending this to only apply to the city of Salem, then would it also be appropriate to amend it to say that no super precinct may cover an area larger than the city?
That's fine. Certainly. I mean,
I
I don't think the city of Salem has jurisdiction outside of the city of Salem.
Well, I guess my point is you wouldn't need to, I guess it wouldn't make sense to have in line 33 that it couldn't cover more than 200 square miles if the city's not even 200
You could
square
even
miles.
strike that line if we.
Okay.
That was drafted for a pilot program.
That was drafted for a pilot program that could be anywhere in Virginia. You could strike that line, certainly.
All right, well, I'll so move that then.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to take that line out of the bill. Is there, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, opposed? Okay, that bill's stricken from, now we have a pilot project that's limited to the city of Salem. I think it's pretty clear what the bill does and what it doesn't do. It's just a policy decision. So anybody that wants to speak in favor of it is welcome. Anybody that wants to speak in opposition is welcome. We've heard from Dr. Wheeler, who has some concern about the bill.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Bell.
Question for council. I think we're good here, but I feel like we should ask this question. The Voting Rights Act of 1965, is there any part of this that could violate that? Because I'm concerned about some of the access issues and that there could be a valid lawsuit and challenge there.
Mr. Chair, or Senator Bell, excuse me, I'm not sure how the Voting Rights Act would apply to super precincts. I don't know that they were contemplated back then. I think there's always a concern when you start limiting places where people can go vote.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Sproul.
let me help you out. I know Salem. Being Grandmaster, my folks are good. It's good in Salem. It won't, there's no problem at all, 65, no problem at all in Salem. Now, yours might be different. We're good in Salem.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I mean, I did want clarification if that was 20 minutes to walk or drive down Salem. But having said that, I mean, I think I appreciate what you're trying to do. I know it's hard to get people to work precincts, and it's discouraging when people are there very early to very late with very few voters. But I would ask that we try to use caution, because I'm really worried we could go afoul of federal law, and I don't want us to get accused of trying to make it hard for somebody to vote.
I think we understand. The bill is before the committee. Okay, there's a motion to pass the bill by indefinitely. Is there a second? Okay, there's a motion and a second. Are there other motions?
Could we maybe do a substitute?
The motion is to PBI.
Second.
A motion and a second to report. Secondary motion comes first. So all in favor of reporting the bill, vote yea on the electronic voting machine.
Seven ayes, 8 nays.
Okay, do we just reverse that on the PBI motion? Okay, do we have to record a new PBI motion? Okay. All in favor of PBI, vote yes on the electronic voting machine. Okay, and you've got some more bills, I think, Senator Edwards.
Yes, I do. I have three bills, that Code Commission bills. These were, first of all, Senate Bill 442, which has to do with reorganization of relating to polling place activity, reorganization of sections of the code. This one having to do with
So a Code Commission bill, there's no new language here, it's just in different places, is that right?
yeah, restructuring polling place activities sections of the code. That's all it is.
Okay, Meg, have you gone over this? And
Yes, I was involved with the project to do some reorganization for this and then the next couple bills, and we just moved language around. We didn't make any substantive changes.
for this and the next two bills as well?
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So does everybody understand what 442 does? A motion, Senator McClellan has a question. You're okay? Okay. There's a motion and a second to report Senate Bill 442. All in favor, vote yes on the electronic voting machine. Okay, the bill's reported. Senate Bill 443.
This
So
has
moved.
to do with provisional voting, reorganization of sections relating to provisional voting, and makes related technical amendments.
Okay,
Again, it's a recommendation of the Code Commission.
but there's no new language in this
No
bill
new
either.
language.
It's all just about moving it
Meg,
around.
Meg knows all about it.
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
She did it.
That is also correct.
Got a motion and a second to report. All in favor, vote yes on the electronic voting machine. Okay, Senate Bill 444 is the same thing. More of the same. This has to deal with recounts. Is that right?
That's right.
Will report.
Okay, got a motion and a second to report. This doesn't take anything out of the code.
No, it's just the restructuring the recount sections of the code. That's all it is. Again, if you have any questions, Meg can answer all of them.
Okay.
She did it.
Okay. We got a motion and a second to report. Everybody in favor, vote yes on the electronic voting machine. Okay, the bill is reported. Is that your last bill?
That's it.
Okay, Senator Barker.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have an unusual situation here, but want to sort of fill you in and let you decide how you want to handle it.
What's the bill number?
The bill number is Senate Bill 121.
Okay.
And there's also what was intended to be an identical bill of Senate Bill 740 from Senator Obenchain. We've worked on this issue of split precincts for the last several years. We've gotten it passed repeatedly in the Senate, but it's not made it out of the, in previous years, it did not make it out of the P&E committee in the House. So we figured we'd try again this year and see if we could get there. So, but what we have is now we have different language in my bill than in Senator Obenchain's. Mine is reflective of the approach that we've taken in the past. What was the language that was in his was actually from, I think originally from accepting it related to the House and everything. But anyway, what it does is it states that after the redistricting is done for congressional, Senate, and House districts, and then you would have to work in with the local election districts, that the local governing body would draw the redraw precinct lines, so it makes adjustments to precinct lines to attempt to eliminate as many, if not all, split precincts there. There is a provision in here that it's not possible to do that without having a precinct created with less than a minimum number of voters that's built into the code. That there would be a request made of the State Board of Elections for if they wanted to have a split precinct, and the State Board of Elections would act on that. It's legislation that's been passed in this body for several years now, and we've just not been successful in getting it through the House. What I would like to do is each time we've had this, Senator Obenchain and I have put in bills on it. I've had mine rolled into his bill, and I would be happy to have that happen again. But this time what we got to do is have not only my bill rolled in, but literally my bill rolled in, and it would have my language rather than the language that's in his, which is Senate Bill 740.
Okay, and this is something you've talked with Senator Obenchain about?
Yes, he was here earlier. He actually he just assumed it was written the same way as it had been on previous years and had not taken a look at it until I asked him to take a look at it, and he took a look at it because I gathered from what had been written on the summary that it didn't make sense compared to related to what we were doing.
We're going to use the language from one, but the number from the other. Is
That's
that correct?
So
okay.
The language from mine would go into Senate Bill 740, which is Senator Obenchain's, and he would be the patron of it, and I would be the chief co-patron or whatever.
So substitute for 740, you'd move 109 into 740, substitute with that
121.
language. Excuse me?
Senate Bill 121.
121, I apologize. And what language from 121 and 740 with Obenchain and Barker listed as chief co-patrons? Okay. Motion and a second to adopt that substitute. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Well, we need to vote yes on the electronic voting machine. All in favor, vote yes on the electronic voting machine. Okay, that substitute's before us. Okay, I think we understand this bill has been before us in one form or another for a couple of times before. Are there any questions of the patron?
Move to report.
Well,
Second.
I've got a motion and a second to report. Are there those in the audience who would like to speak in favor of the bill? And those who would, I'm sorry. Kirk.
I'll be brief, sir. Please do. Kirk Showalter, the General Registrar for the City of Richmond. I'm speaking just for myself today. I prefer this bill to other bills that try to heal split precincts for this reason. It allows a locality to have a waiver from the state board to operate a split precinct. Prime example, the recent House of Delegates redrawing created a split in a precinct, and the split is entirely in the middle of the James River. Without the waiver, I'd have to put a polling place on a houseboat, I guess. So I appreciate the senator's language on that.
Thank you. Dr. Wheeler.
And I will be brief, Clever Wheeler. Anything that you can do, and these two gentlemen have come together to alleviate split precincts. Several years ago, Mr. Chairman, you and Senator Reeves tried to correct this problem in Albemarle County, and it was a great fix. You both agreed to it, and the General Assembly said, no, thank you. And we were left with multiple split precincts. Anytime there's split precincts, there are problems. Anything you can do, and anything that y'all can do with the waivers is, well, I think everybody here from the elections community says thank you.
Are there people that have a contrary view? Okay, we've got a motion and a second to report the bill as substituted. All in favor, vote yes on the electronic voting machine. Okay, the bill is reported.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Senator Kiggins, I apologize. Senator Edwards, I think, was below, maybe both of you, but certainly, but he was just hovering around the
I understand. No problem. No problem. Thank you. And Mr. Chair, members of the committee, thank you very much for having me here today. This is a relatively simple bill that I'm presenting, Senate Bill 316, and it simply changes the date of the primary election held in June from the second Tuesday in June to the third Tuesday in June. Also changes the verbiage and the candidate filing deadlines to reflect this change of date. So this is important. The majority of schools in Virginia are finishing up school that second week in June. So there's a lot of activity, a lot of field days, busyness. Pushing that election date back to the third week would alleviate some of just the conflict and really for school safety is the biggest reason why we wanted to do this, because there's a lot of people just coming into the building that are the doors being held, and usually the door should be locked and whatnot. And I know I experienced it personally just at the polls, and people coming for parent-teacher conferences, and we're accosting everyone with vote for me, and they're like, we're not here to vote, we're here to simply talk to the teacher. So I think it would eliminate a lot of confusion and just again school safety issues. I know there's 37 schools alone in my district. That polling locations are at the schools. The Virginia Electoral Board Association was in my office this morning. They are in support of this bill as well. So I simply ask that you please pass this bill.
It's a simple bill. We've seen it a bunch before.
Yes, sir.
Senator Spruill.
Mr. Chairman, thank you so much for this.
Okay.
We have had problem. The polls open, the school buses are coming in, you got to stop. We had problem, those who are outside want to use the restroom, we got to go down the hall. They can't go down the hall because the bathroom is down the hall, you got to go past classroom. Thank you so much. Welcome to the Senate. Thank you so much.
Senator McClellan, your name's on the board.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question, and depending on the answer, a comment. I know that the Democratic National Committee, when it sets its presidential primary schedule, they have penalties in place that if a state has their primary before the window of when they set that schedule, then their delegation may not be able to vote on the first ballot. Are you aware if there is a similar restriction with the Republican National Committee's presidential primary schedules?
I am not personally aware of that. I don't know if there's anyone who might know the answer, but okay.
Okay. Does this bill impact the presidential primary at all, or is this just for state primary?
Just for the state primary in June.
Okay.
Are there additional questions of the patron? Are there those who would like to speak in favor of the bill?
Yes.
Come on up,
Mr. Chairman,
please.
Senators, Carol Naga with the League of Women Voters, and yes, we do support this. I think it's a real good argument that another senator has every year that he's not going to support it. But now that we've got no excuse absentee voting, all of those folks don't have to come on the second Tuesday. They can come on the third.
Of course, that won't take effect until July 1.
Right. Well, right.
No
When
excuse
it's in
absentee
effect.
voting.
Right. Yes. So we definitely support that.
Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Barbara Tabb with the Virginia Electoral Board Association. We strongly support this. We've asked for this legislation for many, many years. We are scared to death that it's going to take a tragedy in all the schools for us to decide to do this. The other side is the schools are asking us to leave, to not hold our primaries while they're in school. We don't have any other facilities to go to, so we really need you to pass this, please.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Kate Hanley, the Secretary of the Fairfax County Electoral Board, speaking on their behalf. We've taken this position a number of times. We use 167 schools for our 243 precincts. In 2018, we realized we had a problem because we had a lockdown in the school. Nobody could get in, nobody could get out, and maybe in the night it was West Potomac. I think Senator Serville's familiar with West Potomac High School. We realized this. He's not here, that school security decides to keep schools locked. and they are locked except on primary day when the whole neighborhood comes in to vote. Hundreds of people comes in to vote, and that we had a danger that we really were concerned about. People have free access to the students. The parents are there at the end of school for activities, and so there's no parking. This year we had a situation where parents had to sign in, voters didn't. They got into a confrontation, and the school shut the door and locked it, and we had to say, no, you can't do that, because there were the parents and the voters fighting because they were standing in the wrong lines. But the other confusion and why it has a certain amount of voter suppression to it is that during November elections, we vote in cafeterias and gyms. In the primary, we are in storage rooms, music libraries, the front hall in 4 of our elementary schools, and the favorite trailers, which after 4 o'clock when the schools close, the election officials don't have anywhere to go inside to go to the restroom. So we have a real problem with that. And the polling locations are hard to find, and there's no parking. So it is just a real mess. And I know there's concern about families going on vacation. We hope early no excuse absentee and improved access will help that. The safety of our children is more important. Thank you.
Thank you much. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Lisa Stye with Virginia Education Association, and we support the bill.
Thank you, ma'am.
Kirk Showalter, General Registrar for the City of Richmond, speaking on behalf of Voter Registrars Association. We, in fact, in previous years have asked and this legislation be introduced. We didn't ask it again this year, but we do support it.
Okay. Thank you.
Clever Wheeler,
Yes,
I am
ma'am.
speaking for years of trying to get this passed because of everything that all these other people said. This is a child safety issue. Make no mistake. We don't want something horrible to happen to one of our children. Please pass. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Are there people that have a contrary view? Okay, Senator Servell, as I recall, in the past was concerned about moving the date. Was worried about turnout. Senator McClellan.
Yes, Senator Servell's concern was that a lot of people may be on vacation that week. However, with the no excuse absentee voting bill that passed yesterday, and I believe the House is primed to pass as well, that concern is alleviated. I would note we also passed legislation that would allow localities to start school before Labor Day, and if they start a week earlier, this wouldn't be an issue. So I couldn't help but say that, since a school board association and a lot of the same localities that want this also asked us to pass that legislation as well.
Okay, is there a motion on the bill?
I'll move to report.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Are there any other motions? Okay, all in favor of reporting, vote yes on the electronic voting machine.
Fourteen ayes, 0 nays, 1 abstention.
Okay, the bill's reported. Delegate Carol Foy. Thank you very much. Delegate Carol Foy. Now, this is the House resolution on the Equal Rights Amendment. I told the proponents that we didn't need more people because we've heard this year after year after year, and we had a good presentation before. I didn't have the same opportunity to tell the opponents that we don't need more input, but if there's somebody here that's dying to speak, they can speak. Otherwise, we've got the resolution. We've all voted on this a bunch of times in the past. Nothing's changed. Okay. We've got a motion to second. Delegate Carol Foy, do you want to step forward and try to mess things up, or?
I'll pass.
Okay. Then all in favor, vote yes on the electronic voting machine. Thank you very much. That was an excellent job.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, I'm out of patrons on the board, and we still have some bills. I think, does he have another bill? Senator Peake has a bill? Okay, I apologize. Okay. With Senator Peake and Reeves, and well, I'll go by seniority. Senator Reeves.
Mr. Chairman, can you tell me what my two bills are? I'm sorry.
It's 466 and 469.
All right, thank you. Sorry. Four. What was the first one, Mr. Chairman? I'm sorry, I'm like
466 and 469 is what I've got.
456.
66 and 69.
66. I was like, I thought I did that one already.
66 is about jury
Okay.
selection,
Yeah, I got you.
and 69 is about qualification for candidacy.
All right. Got it. The first one is a by request bill, 469, Mr. Chairman. It came as a request of our clerk of the court in Fredericksburg. And currently, right now, they're having to pay for all these lists, and they would like, it's just an added burden to our clerks, and they would like to, well, I guess the term is a reasonable price, but they'd like them to be provided for free if they could do that.
This 466 says that the voter list comes for free to the clerk, and that's for the purpose of jury selection. Is that the whole idea?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are there questions of the patron about this bill?
I thought you were coming to talk, Mark.
It's just report. Well, from the who's going to be the Department of Elections will provide the.
Are they requested? My understanding is there's either a system they requested from the state board, and the state board somehow charges a fee for that.
Did they ask for this? Okay, my understanding is Finance Committee does want this bill.
I'm asking if it was requested.
We did not.
I don't think there was. I think that's something that they can absorb and.
Okay. Well, maybe we'd like to hear from the Department of Elections. Is this a cost you can absorb?
Depends on how many times the clerk's asked me for the list, Mr. Chairman. So, and that's really the answer. There is a House version that limits it to twice a year. We do not have a position on the bill. We are not asked for these lists very much from the clerks, maybe because it's cost prohibitive. So we really just have no way of knowing, like, hey, if something's free, are we going to have requests every day from all the clerks? I think we've given the clerks this list maybe like 5 to 7 times in the past 2 years. So I don't know.
Well, I just want an
Okay.
idea. Say you've got over 1 million people in Fairfax County. You've got 2,300 in
The
Howland
work is
County.
the same, Mr. Chairman. So you just run you run a report.
Okay,
and
so
it's sent.
the population doesn't make any difference.
No.
Or- And fit one area, you might have one that's several thousand pages of names. The other one, you might have one that has 10 pages of names.
Right. Because, Mr. Chairman, we don't print those lists and mail them anymore like we used to. We send them electronically, password encrypted, so that takes out kind of the cost you're probably thinking of. So it's just a matter of frequency of running it, whether it's Fairfax or Bath.
How much time does it take?
It just, I couldn't speak to that, Mr. Chairman. I would have to ask my
Okay.
data team that are
Well,
smarter than me.
Under this bill is drafted, there's no limitation on the number of times a clerk could request lists. Is it conceivable that a clerk could ask for a list, say, for every term day? If that might be 6 times a year?
Mr. Chair, there isn't currently a limit on how many times it could be requested. It just would be at a cost, and this bill says no matter how many times you're asking, it will be free of charge. As Jessica mentioned, there is a House bill that does say that the list would be provided free of charge twice during a 12-month period, and then at all other times during that 12-month period, it would be provided at a reasonable price.
Mr. Chairman?
Senator Spruill.
I'm trying to keep it from going to finance, and we don't want to do that. So once you put a limit, but can't we have it so if you see that now that there's a charge to it, 6 times, 8 or 9 times, the next year you can come back and say, hey, they are coming too much, so now you want to put a price on it. Can you live with that, Brother Reed?
I'm fine, Mr. Chairman. I'm fine with that. Like I said, this was brought at the request of my clerk, who thought they shouldn't have to pay for jury list. I don't know how often Senator Dees might know because I'm not a practicing trial attorney. So
It depends. Some places that have grand juries every month.
Right.
Some places have grand juries, once every 4 months, 3 months. So I'm thinking that if we conform this bill to the House bill to request have that sort of amendment or that sort of substitute, that might allow it to go forward.
Mr. Chairman, I'm fine. Meg knows better than me. She's looking at the bill, but I think something's better than nothing. We're getting nothing right now, so.
I'm just trying to keep from going to finance.
Mr.
Because
Chairman,
I
I'm
can
fine
see
with that.
Janet right now cutting it.
If that would be the committee's will to move that forward, I would second my colleague's amendment to make mine like the House bill.
Okay.
Would it be helpful if I read the language?
Sure.
I would say the department shall provide at no charge the lists for their districts to the courts of the Commonwealth and the United States for jury selection purposes no more than 2 times in a 12-month period, and shall be provided at a reasonable price any other time in that same 12-month period.
Okay, got a motion and a second to substitute that language for the italicized language on lines 23 and 24. We've got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, likes, no? Okay. That is the bill before you. Are there those who would like to speak in favor of that bill? Okay. Those who would like to speak in opposition to that bill? Okay, what's your pleasure?
Move the report as amended.
Okay, motion to report as amended, vote, all in favor, vote yes on the electronic voting machine. Okay. That bill is done. You have one more bill, and then Senator Obenshain's here. And then Senator Peake.
You know
has
what,
a bill.
Mr. Chairman, if I know Senator Obenshain's busy, if you want to go before me, you're welcome to. You got one bill and still have leadership.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Now,
It's very nice of you
you know that George Barker already hijacked one of your bills.
And that's fine with me.
Okay.
I think we'd worked it out, although he has given me the work to do with it, apparently.
Right.
I was hoping he would take that. What I have left is Senate Bill 737 that I think at least we thought in my part of the state was already the law, but we've got a situation in which a member of the electoral board moved out of the jurisdiction for which that member was a member of the electoral board in 2018, but still serves on the electoral board. And
Which county is that?
I
Senator
won't say
Obenshain?
right now, but I'll speak to that offline. And this is not going to affect that member because that member's term will expire next month anyway. It's not going to affect the composition of that board, but it just seems to me that it's a challenge that I would have never guessed would have been a problem. But it is, and want to make it clear going forward that if you're no longer an eligible voter in the locality for which you were appointed to the electoral board, that you're not qualified. And that the normal process for appointing a replacement should be followed. It doesn't alter the party composition or anything else. It just makes clear what I think most of us thought would be the law.
Are there any questions of the patron? Are there those who would like to speak in favor of this bill or in opposition?
Move the report.
Motion is to report. All in favor, vote yes on the electronic voting machine. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, Senator Reeves.
Mr. Chairman, the next bill I have is Senate Bill 469. And, Mr. Chairman, what this bill does is it brings parity and the same rules to everybody. And this came about as my last primary, and it really kind of brought a little light to kind of what happens with regard to our paperwork. You know, oftentimes we are all the candidates, and we have to get all our paperwork in, and if my personal philosophy, if you're going to run for the seat, you ought to be able to do some paperwork. Well, what this says is if there's a deadline, it should mean something. And it's not taking away the authority from the state board but it's holding them to allowing them to give an extension. But at the end of that extension, if you still haven't done it, then you're not going to be on the rolls. And I'm going to give you the scenario for me, Mr. Chairman. We were trying to decide who would be first on the ballot in my race this year, only to find out that the actual board was taking a vote to find out that my candidate hadn't filled out his paperwork and wasn't, quote, qualified under the law, but the state board was still going to take and draw the name, regardless that the candidate wasn't officially there. And that day that they had that board to meet to vote, they came down, the board of the election department said, hey, we're going to grant you an extension. And my candidate fled out the room to try to get his paperwork filed on time. And so all this says is that all of us are equal and that we need to get our paperwork done. And there are some on each side of each chamber that were derelict in duty. And so this just says, look, if you miss it, the state board grants you an extension. You miss that extension, you're not on it.
Clear enough. Are there questions of the patron? Are there,
Mr. Chairman?
Senator Howell?
It's not a question, it's a comment that your situation brought to my mind that's constantly troubled me now for 29 years. And that is that we require a baffling amount of paperwork from candidates. And it is very confusing what is due when, what needs to be notarized. I'd wonder why it needed to be notarized at all. But I think it might be useful if in the next couple of years or whatever, we actually had some sort of a group look at all of this paperwork and see if there's some way to simplify it.
Amen that motion.
Okay. Are there people who would like to speak in favor of the bill? People who would like to speak in opposition to the bill? Okay, the bill's before the committee.
Report.
Okay, are there alternative motions? All in favor of reporting, vote yes on the electronic voting machine. Okay, thank you. Senator Peake and Senator Suderland is not on the committee. Senator Suderland, come forward. You've got several bills.
Got 3 bills today. Is there in any order you'd prefer them, Mr. Chairman?
Whichever one, you know.
They'll be in the order they're in the stack then.
126. Is that the first one?
Sure. Senate Bill 126. This is a bill that brought a few years ago, removing the ability of incumbent office holders to insist on a primary. As you know, if you got elected to the General Assembly at any point, you could choose your method of nomination with that. At the time, I argued that I believed it was unconstitutional. Since then, the Fourth Circuit has ruled that our code section here is, that I'm trying to strike the language from, is unconstitutional in the 6th Congressional District Republican Committee versus Alcorn that was decided as we were convening last year. So
what you're saying now is we ought to follow the courts.
Well, that's what Senator Evans said earlier today when I voted with him. Yes.
Okay.
But I also think it's the right thing to do, so I'm happy to take questions either way.
Okay, Senator Spruill.
Yes, sir.
I don't have to be up. So what are you trying to say, that do away with the primaries?
No, sir. So under the current law, if there's an open seat, there's no incumbent, the local party or legislative district committee gets to decide the method of nomination. There has been a provision in the code for some time that says if someone was nominated by a primary and they're, say, a member of the U.S. Congress or U.S. Senate, they can choose to be renominated by a primary if they were nominated by that. And then, irregardless of how you were nominated, a member of the General Assembly always had the right to dictate that. My belief, and the Fourth Circuit has affirmed it, is that that's unconstitutional because it was giving us, by the simple fact that we won an election once, an unfair advantage of getting to seek the method of nomination rather than it being our respective political party.
Mr. Chairman?
Senator Spruill.
Then suppose you're not favored with your local party. For example, like I had to run, and I won the primary, but my local party may not want a primary. Suppose sometimes I'm okay with my party, sometimes I'm not okay with my party. So since I'm the seventh and I ran for the election and I won, I just to me it ain't helping us out now. But to me, I would have my own faith and put my faith in a local party because I'm not always favored with my party.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, and I would say that that was part of the discussion we had 4 years ago. I took a little different position. I believe that it's an unfair advantage to us that we enjoyed at the time. I would tell you that today, there's no plan to appeal the Fourth Circuit decision to the Supreme Court. That's set. So as of today, if we fast forwarded 4 years from now and the law changes, if there's a redistricting, but let's say fast forward 8 years from now and you are seeking renomination, your legislative district committee will get to decide regardless if this bill passes or not. So I'd like you all to vote for it. I think it's the right thing to do, but also I'm telling you the federal courts have already determined that our law is unconstitutional.
Okay, are there additional questions? Are there those who would like to speak in favor of the bill? Those who would like to speak in opposition of the bill? Well, the bill is before the committee. Got a motion and a second to report the bill. Are
Mr.
there
Chairman,
other motions?
I had a quick question.
Senator Surville.
I kind of walked in the middle of this and was distracted. I just want to make sure the only thing we're doing is just taking this out of the code because the court said it's unconstitutional. You're not seeking to do any kind of substantive change other than that, right?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if you go to 24.2-509, we're striking Section B, which is the provision that, it's properly known as incumbent protection.
I like income protection myself.
Well,
Senator Surville, are you completed? You are?
I'm not happy with the decision, but I understand what we have to do.
Okay. All in favor of the bill, vote yes on the electronic voting machine.
I look forward to explaining this to everyone. There's already another no, but it doesn't matter. Oh, no, I thought I was going to have to explain it. I was confident.
Okay, what's your next bill?
Next one, I have Senate Bill 979. What this does, this amends the code section dealing with the candidates that do not have to currently file campaign finance reports in Virginia. The code is written that everyone has to file a campaign finance report unless you're running for federal office, which makes sense. You're running in a town with a population of less than 25,000, and we allow those towns to decide what their rules are going to be on it. And soil and water, as well as political parties. And also, there's different code sections that deal with political parties. Once you hit $15,000 in a year, you have to do it.
So as I understand the bill, you'd require soil and water, candidates for soil and water conservation district to file.
Right, but the very relevant code section that doesn't appear on this bill is that any candidate that's running for any office in Virginia that doesn't intend to spend, raise, or contribute themselves $1,000 or more, which would be the vast majority of our soil and water candidates, they do not need to file.
How much does a soil and water conservation member, soil and water conservation district director make?
They don't make any, but I'd like to tell you why I think this should change. So currently, this had not been an issue for a long time. You sometimes have political parties get involved in some of these races, but primarily these were our local farmers that were truly pretty qualified to run for it. It's up to the voters to decide who's qualified or not. But what's happened in more recent years is political parties have started getting involved. And so we now have candidates that run that solicit campaign contributions in the same way as if they were running for city council or board of supervisors. And some of them are still actively, even though the election was in November, are still actively soliciting funds right now. And the situation is they don't have to report anything. So there would be nothing stopping someone from running for Soil and Water Board, and you have a long lead time. You don't have to disclose a single contribution, and then you can transfer the unlimited amount of money into your General Assembly campaign, and you've basically hit all the contributors.
You know, it seems to me, Senator Sutherland, this is probably aimed at one particular soil and water conservation district.
It's
director.
not one. I can tell you I've got at least 4 in mind. and they're in the Roanoke Valley, Southwest Virginia, Northern Virginia, and I don't know what you want to call the area, not urban Hampton Roads, but more rural Hampton
My
Roads.
concern about making this applicable to all the people is it's going to deter volunteers, people from volunteering from this work. In a lot of these districts, you don't have competitive races. So why don't you just say directors of soil and water conservation districts, unless they agree not to raise or spend money, under that other code section?
Well, do you want me to answer that, or do you want the other committee?
No.
I'm happy to answer that. The reason is because that's what I believe the bill before you does, because it would apply to everyone else, the $1,000 threshold. You can run for Board of Supervisors in a large jurisdiction, and as long as you never go over that $1,000, you're fine. You don't have to do all the reporting. So what this bill says, when it's accompanied with the other code section, is the $1,000.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Spruill.
in Chesapeake, when we have a lot of, I pronounce the word rural, how y'all say rural? Rural. We have a hard time trying to find anybody. We begging folks for good folks who knows about that kind of stuff. No party, we don't care what party belongs to. We are begging folks, and now you can do this? And this is true. I mean, we have more rural, if I pronounce the word, than anybody. Chesapeake is the second largest city land-wise in the state. The second, and we are begging, trying to find folks. We don't care what they are. Folks who know the business. We have folks in Chesapeake who know that kind of stuff, whatever they do. We know, and we are begging for folks. Doesn't matter what party. Please don't hurt us.
Senator Spruill, was that a question or just a statement?
A statement. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, there was
I apologize.
an amendment that I meant to address with council earlier, and we wanted to see if you would be willing to adopt it, because there is question on what's a local office in the other code section, because some of these are multi-jurisdictional. And so we would also amend that there, if you're so inclined.
May
if you
add
want
another
counsel.
code section to the bill?
Correct, Mr. Chairman. The code section that provides that exemption if candidates for local offices don't spend more than a certain amount of money. I talked with our local government attorney to see do we agree that a local office would include these soil and water conservation district directors, and they're kind of a weird quasi situation, so it'd be better to clarify. So we would want to add this code section and then amend it.
Okay. Okay, are you able to tell us what that would look like or sound like?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, we would add in the code section 24.2-948.1. And then the very first sentence of the very first subsection says, this section shall apply to candidates for local office. And we would add at the end of that sentence after local office and direct or soil and water conservation districts.
Okay, I've got a motion. Do I have a second? Second. Okay, I got a motion and a second to add that to the bill. And would that need to be a substitute, or, okay, would I have a substitute that would incorporate that code section and that change to this bill? Do I have a motion and a second to create a new substitute? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, opposed, no. Okay, we have the substitute before us. Are there other questions of the patron?
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Spruill's got more questions.
To the committee. Please don't make Warden, so don't make that political. It is not. And see what you are doing now, it's $1,000. They don't spend nothing. So what you are doing now, then you're gonna make it political. In Chesapeake, for example, you're either Republican or Democrat. Even though our city council charter says we don't say the charter doesn't matter, doesn't say what it is. we are Republican, Democrat, but we know. But on that, we're just trying to find qualified folks. And now you're going to force us to pick folks to join a party, and we don't have that. We have good folks now.
That's the opposite of what.
Okay, are there those people who would like to speak in favor of the bill in the audience? People who would like to speak in opposition to the bill?
Mr. Chairman, Kendall Tyree with the Association of Soil and Water Conservation Districts. I do recognize the patrons' concerns. Certainly, though, our association members, directors from across the state are concerned this could limit, just as you say, recruiting qualified individuals into these unpaid volunteer positions.
Ms. Tyree, what about the amendment which would limit, say, if Soil Water Conservation District candidate agreed not to spend or raise more than $1,000 or $1,000, does that make it any better?
The amendment certainly helps and makes a difference. While I think the majority of the candidates across the state running for Soil and Water Director are not paying anything for their campaigns.
That's right.
Certainly, we are struggling to find qualified candidates in certain areas. There is potentially certain areas where $1,000 may be still difficult, where Prince William Soil and Water District saw 2 farmers running and 1 lost. You might hit that 1,000 mark with a few materials and few yard signs, which happened. I think we can potentially work with the amendment. It is an improvement to the initial bill.
And if you do more than $1,000, the thing is, in a lot of the areas I represent, you've got write-in candidates because nobody runs for this stuff anyway. Right? Very few people run for soil and water conservation districts.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Bell.
this might be for council. The $1,000, is that in kind or just cash contributions?
I'm going to double check the definition of contributions just to make sure I don't lead you all astray. It's money and services of any amount, in-kind contributions, and any other thing of value, given, advanced, loaned, or in any other way provided.
Senator McClellan.
Mr. Chair, I recognize that, things may be different than in different parts of the state, but the patron is right, and this is not just a Northern Virginia thing, but here in Henrico County, we had 5 people run for this position for 2 open slots, 3 open slots, but 2 of those slots, the local Democratic committee endorsed candidates. And so that's happening now. And so the 2 that were endorsed by the local committee they appeared on the same literature that House delegate candidates, the Commonwealth attorney candidate, the sheriff candidate, and the other 3, who also happened to be Democrats but weren't the endorsed ones, had to try to compete with that. So these are, as more of our localities are having people who want to run for office, which is a good thing, this is going to become more and more of an issue. So, maybe if you have a write-in or only one candidate, they're probably not going to spend $1,000 because they don't need to. But in those areas where you have 5 people running, they probably are going to spend money, and we need the same transparency for those elections as we do for every other election.
Okay, are there other questions, or the bill is certainly before the committee? Is there a motion?
I move to report it as amended. With our, Mr. Chairman, I move to report the substitute.
Okay, got a motion and a second to report. Are there other motions? Okay, all in favor of reporting, vote yes on the electronic voting machine.
13 ayes, 2 noes.
The bill's reported. Do you have another bill?
Yes. Mr. Chairman, Senate Bill 835. And if you want to just look at the text in front of you, the relevant lines are 20 through 22. And this code section deals with moving elections from May to November. And that's something that the General Assembly has allowed cities to do, and several cities have chosen to do so. But something that was revealed in this process is that if you have someone that is elected, or if someone is appointed to fill a vacancy in January of the year they're not up, they usually would have to get to enjoy being in office from 18 months, pretty much, until they were ever actually before the voters, which in itself is a different issue. But if it also coincides with when they are moving the election from May to November, it means you can have someone that's in appointed office for 23 months, even though they were never elected. And so what this bill seeks to do is to prevent the member who was never elected by the public from voting on extending their own term 6 months, so that they would be able to be in there for 23 months. Or 22 months, sorry.
Is that a real problem, or?
It's something that happened in a city, in Roanoke City, and I don't think that if I represent another city that has a May election, and there's other jurisdictions that have May, and I don't think that if it moves from May to November, that someone should be able to vote on that.
Senator Suderland, I got to know. Senator Edwards had a bill that affected the city of Salem, which you represent. Now you have a bill that affects the city of Roanoke, which he represents.
How
Why are
does
you
the
all
Salem
getting in
one
each
do?
other's business?
One go? Do you really want to know?
Second.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Spruill.
then, listen, in Chesapeake and Norfolk, the city of Norfolk says no, they want to stay May, they want to stay in May. In Chesapeake, the D's, and tell you what that stands for, says yes. The R says no. So with this, because they both in May. So with this bill, if this bill passed, and are you saying by passing this bill, will those two cities have to have the election in November?
No, sir.
What this bill says is that if you appoint somebody to a vacancy on city council, and then there's an ordinance that changes the date of the election, that the person that's appointed, whose term would get extended a few months, cannot vote to extend.
Okay, so what happens then if those two cities elected in May and someone's appointed? Then how long would they serve?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
I'm trying to get. I understand what you're saying about the extended time, but since these two cities, the Chesapeake and Norfolk, their election is May. So if a person is appointed, let's say if a person is appointed in September, and election's over in September, so how long would they stay on council before they have to be run for office?
If someone was appointed in the September preceding the May election.
Yes, sir.
Under current law, they would stay in there from September to, and they then move the election from May to November?
No, sir, we're not moving nothing.
Oh, they'd stay in from September through some point in late May once the election was certified. If they won, they would get to continue. If they weren't a successful candidate, they wouldn't get to continue.
Mr. Chairman, that's not a question. We're talking about the election's over with, and it's over with, and somehow a member of city council gets sick, hit the lottery, and just quit.
Why would they want to quit?
Wait a minute, I'm just saying, so still it's this September, and then the election, we hold our election in May. So they said, well, we got to appoint someone because this person quit. So how long do they stay appointed before they have to run for office?
Under current
Yes,
law,
sir.
someone that's appointed in September that wanted to continue there would then have to run in May to get reelected, to get elected to their own term.
So in May, 4 years from now, because of their 4 years, so they're appointed. I'm saying the election's over in May. We got that.
I think
When just had elections in May, and I remember who was there on council, and they stepped down in September. Election's over with, and we appoint someone. So do they have to run until the next election sometime, or can they serve the whole 3 years and some until it's over with?
Mr. Chairman, when there's a vacancy and someone is appointed, they're filling that seat until there's a special election held to fill that seat, and that's not impacted by this bill.
Okay, thank you so much.
Mr. Chair,
Senator Vogel.
if I may, speaking to the bill, in the context in which the patron brings this bill, I think really there's some confusion and it's understandable, but I think what we're really trying to address here is an ethics issue. That's really what this is an ethics bill.
Okay.
And that is to say that if you are appointed to fill a vacancy, and you're simply filling the vacancy, and then there will subsequently be a special election, that if in that intervening time there is a vote that would allow you to vote to extend your term in a way that would be unfair, that would allow you to extend your time beyond the time frame that would ordinarily be allowed under current law, that would make it longer than the voters would otherwise have an opportunity. Otherwise, voters would have an opportunity to opine on whether they wanted you to stay or not. In this case, you have it's just not fair. So in that case, you ethically should recuse yourself from that vote because it's obviously in your interest. So I think that the patron's intentions are valid, and I would encourage the committee to support the bill. That was a very inarticulate explanation, but I think I'm so tired right now, I just can babble. But the bottom line is that's really what the bill is. It's very simple, and I think that the committee should support the bill. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Senator McClellan.
Mr. Chair, this may be a question for staff. Is there any other place where we, the General Assembly, prohibit a member of a local governing body from voting on a particular item?
Mr. Chair, Senator McClellan, in the conflicts of interest context.
But in the conflicts of interest context, isn't it a general prohibition you don't vote for something in which you have a direct personal interest? It does not say you will not vote on a specific item. It leaves it to the governing body to develop ethics rules to figure out what that conflict would be, and then leaves it to your discretion whether or not you fall in that. We don't prescribe what the answer is, do we?
Mr. Chair, Senator McClellan, I have not had to endure the conflicts of interest bills in quite a few years. If I remember correctly, there are times where very specific types of things do prohibit you from being able to vote. I know there's also some general prohibitions, but I could not answer your question right now.
But Meg, don't those specific things relate to like contracts that you have a personal interest in and things like that that you can't vote on?
Yeah, typically, it's a financial.
Where there's a financial interest.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, speaking to the bill, Mr.
Okay,
Chair.
Senator McClellan.
I guess, here, an individual member voting on when an election would be that affects them applies to everybody on there, just like voting on whether or not you get a raise applies to everybody. I would have a problem with us saying everyone represented by that member serving in a temporary fashion as a result of a vacancy has no vote. And I'm not comfortable doing that when there are lots of different times where a representative has to decide, should I recuse myself or not? And if they make the wrong choice, according to the voters usually let them know. If that person's going to be on the ballot and the voters think you should have recused yourself, they're going to probably let their will be known. But to just say everybody represented by that person gets no representation on a particular vote, I would have a problem with.
Mr. Chairman.
It's an at-large seat. So
Senator
everyone's
Sproul.
at-large.
Well, in Chesapeake, for example, we're at large. Now, the problem I have that we elected in May. And let's say if there's a 2-year left on a somebody's term, and the lawyer has just said that until a special election. So we know if they appoint them in July, August, and especially they got to run for the special election in November to continue the other 2 years. And so, you follow me so far? I'm appointed until a special election, and that special election is in November. So, but members on council already, and the election is 2 years away from there, except the special election, because I'm fill a term when someone is going for the special election, which is in November. So I got 3 months to stay on city council, 3 months until the special election. Now, if that was me and I was on city council, every person coming for me said, "You want an apple?" Yes. But those who are running for the same special election, I have the advantage on them because every time I'm on council now for 3 months, I'm just temporary for 3 months for a special election. And so every time someone coming for me, I'm going to say, yes, you don't want it? No. Then those who are outside don't have that kind of advantage. I have that advantage because I know I'm on there for 3 months anyway. So they will have the advantage than those who are not on for that special election. Am I making sense to you?
Mr. Chair.
Senator Boysko.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question for the patron.
Yes, ma'am.
Is this regarding some specific issue with one council that you're having a concern with, or does the entire state need to be?
So, yeah, I'm happy to answer that. So, first, I also want to answer Senator McClellan's concern with that. These are at-large seats, so they're represented by the other 6 members of council.
But it doesn't say.
Right. And so if you want to amend it so that it's only for at-large seats, but I don't think that there's that many cities that have wards that haven't already moved. If that's a concern, I'm happy to amend it. But so the situation is, it was discovered that someone could be in office now for basically the length of a state delegate or a member of the U.S. Congress, never standing before the voters.
Okay, I think, did we understand? Are there other people that want to ask questions? Are there people in the audience who would like to speak in favor of this bill? Are there people who would like to speak in opposition?
Mr. Chairman, Jessica Ackerman with the Virginia Municipal League. Speaking to Senator McClellan's point, we oppose this bill.
The bill is before the committee.
Move to pass by indefinitely.
Is there, okay, there's got a motion and a second. Are there other motions? Okay, all in favor of passing the bill by will vote yes on the electronic voting machine. Okay, the bill is passed by. Is that your last bill?
I only had 3. Thank you.
Well, you got 2 of them. That's pretty good. Okay, Senator Peake, I think you're what stands between everyone up here and their supper. So tread lightly.
Great. I've got a lot of stuff to tell you. That's 119, Mr. Chairman.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Hold on a second. There's a lady that's in the audience. Yes, ma'am?
I had a short statement to speak to the fact of passage of HJ1 reporting
Yes,
to
ma'am.
the
We
Senate.
passed that a long time ago.
It's just a statement.
It's
of a
done.
thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am.
If you want to say
We've
something.
already passed that bill.
I see.
Thank you. Well, we're hearing Senator Peake right now.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Senate Bill 119, it's another of the split precinct bills.
I was looking at that. I wonder
Yeah.
how that relates to the bill we passed with Senator Barker and Obenchain.
I was wondering the same thing, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
And I was wondering does our council have an opinion?
I have an opinion about a lot of things.
Well,
Is this just an alternative approach, Meg, or was this something that we don't need with the other bill, or?
Yeah, I would agree with the latter of those statements, that with the substance of SB 121 that is now in SB 740.
shall we roll mine into 740 and?
Could we do
me
that? Would that
co-patron?
require us to adopt another substitute, another recorded vote? To roll 119 into 740 that includes 121 and list Senator Peake as a chief co-patron? Oh, we have to reconsider the vote whereby we reported that bill. Is there a motion to reconsider? Yes, sir. Okay, the motion is made and seconded. All in favor, vote yes on the electronic voting machine. Now is the bill's back before us. Is there a motion to reconsider the substitute, reconsider the adoption of the substitute that included Barker's language and Obenchain's bill? Okay, that motion's back before us. Do we need to?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we also roll something into that original
do we need to record the vote of the reconsideration of the substitute? Okay. Then 119 will be rolled in with the language from 121 into 740. Is that right? Okay. And Oben, Shane, Barker, and Peak would be listed as chief co-patrons.
True bipartisanship.
Okay. Is there a motion for that, all of that? And a second. Okay. All in favor, vote yes on the electronic voting machine. Okay, Senator Peak, do you have another bill?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, we haven't reported it yet.
Yeah, I apologize.
We'll let you fix
Oh,
it.
we've adopted the substitute, that's right. Now we have to report the bill.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. I wasn't here for the discussion.
Senator Servell has a bill,
A question.
has a question.
I'm sorry. And either council or maybe Senator Peake can answer it. Does this bill require localities to create new precincts for these precincts that are split this year for the
No.
election in November, or is this only
No.
after redistricting?
After,
Mr. Chair, Senator Serville, with the language of SB 121, this is requiring that precinct boundaries be established immediately after we all complete our decennial redistricting. And then even if there needs to be a split precinct, there is a waiver process provided for where there could either be a split precinct or there can be a precinct that has less than the minimum number of voters. So this.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure we weren't going to require people to fix things that are going to get redrawn in a year.
I
Okay, thanks.
realize it's confusing. It's the language from 121 Barker Bill into 740. It includes 119 now. We've got a motion and a second to report. So all in favor, vote yes on the electronic voting machine. Okay, the bill is reported. Okay, do you have another bill?
yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
Senate
ma'am.
Bill 535. I brought this one for you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
This happened last election. Now that the counties have GIS or GPS, whatever it is, it's a lot more accurate than what the counties used to have. So what has happened is, like Fluvanna County and Albemarle County, for instance. So if somebody lives in Fluvanna, they pay taxes in Fluvanna. Well, the state electoral board looked at GPS lines or GIS lines, whichever it was.
This fixes a problem where the day after the election, I found out I had
There were
constituents in Fluvanna. The day after the election, you found out you had constituents in Goochland.
Oh, I've got all Goochland, so I had to, yeah.
Okay.
Here you got a couple. You got 23 of mine that voted against you, so I know you want to give them back to me. And then this what happened. So they've been paying taxes in the county forever, voting in the county forever. Kids go to high school in that county. They looked at these lines and said, well, nah, your house is in the other county.
And my record is that we voted for this bill unanimously last time. It got out of the Senate unanimously and died in the House. Is that correct,
Got it.
Meg?
That is correct.
That's
And
correct.
nothing about the bill has changed from last year?
Nope.
Okay.
We might have tried to fix it up a little bit.
Are there
to get
people in the
numbers.
audience who would like to speak in favor of the bill? Just raise your hand if you're in favor of it. Okay. Are there people who would like to, who are opposed to the bill? Okay, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second? There is.
Second.
Okay, a motion to report the bill. All in favor, vote yes on the electronic voting machine.
All right.
Okay, the bill is reported. Is that your last bill? Okay, ma'am, you said you had something to say. Yes, ma'am, about a bill we passed an hour ago.
Well, the reason being is it's about to go to the Senate floor, and I have a statement regarding that.
And we've already
helps
passed
to
it on the Senate floor in the Senate version.
Right,
Yes,
but
ma'am.
it's going to
Mr.
be
Chairman?
Monday to the,
Mr. Chairman?
it'll be at the entire Senate again.
Senator Reeves has a question.
Ma'am, do you have your comments in a written form?
Yes, but I came prepared to state them, and I was told that there was a moment to speak in favor, and then the team here said, oh, no, they might
Mr. Chairman,
need to go
if
home.
we let her go, we'd be done.
And I
Let's
would
let her
like
talk.
to share the statement.
There are no
It's
more
less
votes.
than a minute.
Mr. Chairman, might I make the suggestion, ma'am, if you're comfortable with it, the hour is late and we have other obligations, but if you'd like, I
Okay,
can assure that.
hold on a second. I think this lady came from out of state.
Yes,
So
I
if
Oh,
did.
if
okay.
she
Sure.
wants to speak, that's fine.
I traveled a lot of miles.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so wonderful. I'll begin.
Yes, ma'am.
Honorable committee members, I, Jeanette Dean, a 2015 alumna of the University of Nevada, Reno in political science and sociology, the 2013 Outstanding Intern Award winner of the Nevada Legislature in the state capital of Carson City, and the lead organizer for Nevada ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment, who asked outstanding Nevada Senator Spearman to introduce and help champion the resolutions SJ 16 in 2015 and SJ 2 in 2017, which was jubilantly passed March 22nd, 2017. Respectfully thank you today on behalf of Nevadans, Nevada Senator Pat Spearman, and Nevada's majority of legislators who worked so hard to finally and most jubilantly pass the great state of Nevada's ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment. We ask you to also join us in completing the great state of Virginia's ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment as well through the next final official step of reporting and approving on the Senate floor House Joint Resolution 1, which passed the House of Delegates and which was introduced by its chief patron, the Honorable Jennifer Carroll Foy, and which now has a total of 55 patrons, including its chief patron, 3 co-patrons, including the Honorable Hala S. Ayala, and many other patrons who are also champions of equal rights for all Americans. It is amid a great sigh of relief and hearts full of joy that we Americans across the country, which also includes Illinoisans and legislators of the great state of Illinois, who also ratified on May 30th, 2018. We look forward to celebrating U.S. equal rights after Virginia's history-making official ratification very soon, which very importantly also greatly helps the United States of America finally join the entire world in making ethical and essential equal rights for all of we the people part of our country's vital constitution as well. Virginia, I therefore enthusiastically ask you once again to please complete official ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We rise.